Hi, I'm Cenk. We are continuing to the KONTRAAKT Foodvision Food Innovation Broadcasting Series from Paris. Again, I am in a white room, some kind of generic white room that you cannot differentiate from any other rooms that you can find here, there, or everywhere. So it is hard again to tell that I am in Paris, but I am actually in Paris. So no doubt for that. Right now we are in Volume Paris in Paris, and we are doing this broadcast sessions in collaboration with Volume Paris, Food Lab Paris, and also in collaboration with KONTRAAKT project from Istanbul. Today I want to introduce you, let's say, a new friend of mine, but at the same time quite an inspiring young woman who, in a way, focused on wine production in the local scale, let's say. It is a local scale production. Maybe we can also call it some kind of boutique brand, but at the same time, she's a highly professional personality on wine culture, wine production, and they are running a family business in Turkey, in the western part of Turkey, somewhere close to Izmir. So, Gaye, welcome.
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and our main topic is food innovation, and there is various conceptions of that topic for sure. It is highly related to this person who are focusing on any kind of issue related to food, and innovation they do is quite related to their ambitions, to their person, to the opportunities or problematics of the local environment that they are running those businesses. So maybe my first question to Gaye can be the simple and not an inventive one. Can you just please describe yourself to us to know you a little bit more in person?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. This is Gaye Özcan. Right now, I'm in the Nif Winery that we initiated in Izmir, which is in the western part of Turkey. The winery is located in the middle of the vineyards. We have 40 hectares of vineyards and consists of different grape varieties, mainly local indigenous varieties. But we have international varieties as well. I'm an agricultural engineer. I did my Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Engineering in Turkey, in Izmir. And then I went to America, California, to study my enology degree there, master degree. I studied enology, and then I did some internships and works with the wineries in America. Then I moved to Australia for another experiences in winemaking. And after that, in 2012, I turned back to Turkey to do my first vintage here. And I co-founded Nif Vineyards with my dad. He's also in this project. And like I said, now we are in the middle of 40 hectares of vineyards, and totally we are producing like 100,000 bottles every year. And this is what can I summarize about myself.
Can you a little show us around, maybe just by basically turning the laptop?
Yes, actually right now I'm in the private tasting room of the winery. And this level of the winery is like the offices. And behind me you see a painting from a young painter from Izmir. This is the round. I don't know if the camera can see. And now what you see there is like the big glass frontier of the winery, and the back, I don't know if you can catch it, there's a vineyards. And also here.
This
can
is
you see?
Yeah. The window on your left side is much more clear.
Okay, I can get closer. Yeah. These are
Yeah,
vineyards. We planted these vineyards like 3 years ago. There's some indigenous varieties like Narince and Viognier from France. And what you see there actually is under construction right now. It's going to be the wine bar, bistro and wine bar of the Nif Vineyards in the vineyard.
So you are actually working and not only working, but also you're creating some kind of culture related to wine and wine production at the same time, because whatever is different, whatever differentiates you from the bigger scale wine producers, for example, you also create this unique, not seasonal, but unique types of very purely processed wines, and at the same time try to create some kind of local culture in the local context, you know, a local culture related to the consumption of the wine, and also wine culture, because as far as I know, the bar that you showed me will work for that purpose too. So you're going to have their events or tasting sessions, etc. So it is not only a place where you can directly introduce your production with your customers, but at the same time, this series of events probably will create this local wine culture there. In Izmir, I know that there are some other associations who try to create some kind of regional specific plan to create wine routes and to connect these wine producers to each other, and also to promote the wine culture and wine consumption. So how do you think it, because you know, whatever you produce is something directly related to a specific type of culture at the end, right? So is it hard to do it in that context, or is it fun, or is it something that makes you suffer, or something which is fun?
All of them. All of them. It's troublesome, some excitement, some enjoy, some all of them. It's a big responsibility, because when you do something in Turkey in these terms, which is a big culture, it's a global culture, like wine consumption, wine production, whole globally, in every part of the world, in every context, there's some wine production, and the history of wine production goes very, very long. So it's a big journey on this universe. So, but when we talk about Turkey about this, like we always say that there is a big history on this land about wine production, because as a part of the Caucasus region, the lands that Turkey is on now is a very big, played a big role in wine production and grape production. So, and when you look at back, there's a big gap and the beginning of the, Turkish Republic. So there's many varieties that we lost that belongs to on this land, what they use in wine production. And if you continue to not produce, and being a bridge between those gap, I think it's a big responsibility for us, especially for me. And when we talk about Izmir, like we have some indigenous grape varieties here belongs to Izmir, like Bornova Muscat, which take its name from neighborhood of Bornova. And I'm not born and grow up in Izmir, but I know a lot of people that are born and grow up here, and they don't know about those local grape varieties. And when we introduce them to those kind of new informations, they really getting excited about it, and they getting in a feeling of ownership about something that they just heard like 10 minutes ago. So to think that, to see those excitement on the face of the people makes me more excited about the job that I'm doing, like, because you're informing people about the treasures they just have like very close by to them. And I think it's a life-changing experience for everyone, for us, for giving that information, for all the people that taking that information. It's one of the main purposes for me doing this, and I enjoy it a lot, that's why. But of course, at the same time, it's very hard because for the wine production, for wine industry in Turkey now, of course, it's very hard. It's hard because of some political issues, because of some marketing issues, because there is a big culture. There was a culture, but there is a big gap. We lost that information about wine production and how to consume it in the last 100 years. So to try to expose people to something very new for them is kind of a challenge. But at the same time, it's very satisfying to see the difference, how people start to consume and how they doing their decisions and how they choose the product when you inform them. Like, because when you inform about the product, where is that coming from, and the story about it, maybe when they go to market to choose a wine, they start to think about different things like that. They're not going to choose the main brands they used to choose, but then they started to think about the local ones, and they demand of the other small brands, and this is also giving chance to the small scale producers to promote their products.
Yeah, when we think about wine, it is not only a culture of alcoholic beverages, but it is directly related to the food culture, basically, because it is
plays a very big role in the food culture, because when we look to in every part of the world, when you talk about the food, then it comes to wine eventually. So, like I said, like it was same for these lands as well, but like it's happening everywhere because of the political issues or some other issues. There is some prevention on that, but I can't differentiate food from wine from food. It's a very big companion to each other. So.
And at the same time, you not only produce grapes and wines, but also in your field that you inherited from your grandfather, you have olive trees. So I know that you don't prepare anything commercial out of those trees and olives, but at the whenever I dream on local food production and local food consumption, I cannot separate these different type of trees and different types of food that you can create out of those plants and living things, basically. I cannot separate them from each other, because cheese is something related to that. Of course, the milk production is something related to that. And then, you think about olive oil, you think about olives, you think about the processes that the processes that you apply to take care of the olives, etc. So they are, in a way, interconnected to this grape production and, of course, wine production, but at the same time, vinegar production, for example, because all of them are like something quite interconnected, because most of the time you don't consume wine. If you produce, if you are focused on creating some kind of wine culture, then you never 100% only focus on the production and consumption of the wine itself, but at the same time you consume it with some other side dishes, cheese, bread, olive oil, this and that. So at the end, it describes some kind of bigger picture of or let's say a bigger frame of lifestyle at the end. And that's why it's more important. And then it is quite related to your altitude, how you take care of the soil, and how you plan the urban area, the agriculture area, how you manage it at the same time. So this is you start with a bottle, or or some kind of white or red drink inside of a glass, but actually all of these issues, which has various scales, that are totally interconnected at the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, what makes wine very special when you compare with the other products, like agricultural products, you make the wine out of grape, which is just, you can cultivate just once a year, and the end product, which is grape, is really related to in very different conditions in soils, and to the temperature, to the sun, to sun exposure, and how you treated the wine, the cultivation, and everything. So that's why it's not like a very formalized product. That's why there's a vintage in winemaking. That's why every year you're expecting something different. You have to manage with the different conditions. That's why it's not easy to make wine. That's why there's the professionals who comes through the production process, because every year you have different product, that you have different kind of challenges, different kind of problems that you have to find new solutions to them, because the content of the grape, the chemical content of the grape is changing every year, like I said, because of the soil and everything. So you have to be careful, and you have to observe in those special things in every aspect, like how will I look after the soil, and how much I need to water it, and how will I do my pruning, and how much yield I'm expecting from my vineyards. This year, the sun exposure, will it be too much or less, and the temperature, will it be too high or too cold, there will be too much raining or not. And so these are changing every year, so that the end product is changing every year.
So yeah, it is not 100% an industrial production process at the end. So you cannot, you don't control the necessary conditions, but you are depending on the conditions and try to.
So you have to observe it really well, and it makes you very get close by the nature that you are working with, because you are working with that nature. And like you said, you are not controlling the nature. Nature is controlling you, and you have to obey to that. So it makes you getting very, very close and observe everything very closely, and accumulate all those information and bring them together, and try to find out and try to accumulate your experiences depending on all those informations that you accumulated on all those years. And that's what makes winemaking very exciting and difficult and fun.
Because the product that we call wine at the end is something alive. In the I don't know, barrels, right? It is alive. It is alive, and it creates itself in the process. That's why it is much more interesting too, because it is affected by anything. So every year, I know this is a cliche, but every year, even though you use the same plants, you use the same processes, because of various reasons, the end product changes, and the end product changes from bottle to another bottle too. So,
yeah, exactly.
So it is also quite an interesting thing to work on, because it is not again, there are industrial ways of producing wine, but in the scale that you are busy with right now, it is much more interesting, because basically you are dealing with a living product at the end, because it is alive all the way through to its production journey. And you are one of the, let's say, co-founders of a scientific research project in the region. Maybe you might also tell about that, because you also collaborate with universities and in these terms, right? You know, in the term, you know, in the concept of creating wine culture, or in the concept of creating wine production culture related to the geography, climate, and you know, those kind of technical issues at the same time. So do you want to tell something a little about that project too?
Like we always talk in winemaking, the terroir, which consists of soil, climate, and the romantic issue of the soul, the whole invisible but felt soul of the place, and the history, and the people live there, their culture, and everything. When you collect all of this, then the terroir is happening. So it's very important, like because of the reasons we just talk about. It's very important in winemaking, and which makes wine and wine roots is very special when you compare to the other products. So with the Anatolia University, actually they are doing the research part, but what we are doing together, and there are some examples of it in Turkey already, like in Thracian part and some in Urla, but now we are trying to building another example of it as an Asian wine route, which will be connected to the Europe wine route. So with this route, what we aim to, our main purpose actually is, like I said, to first of all to inform all the people in Turkey, local people, about the treasures around them, and get them involved in that culture, in winemaking process, in the winery, in wine consumption, and making them more exposed to wine and to its culture. By the route, and what we planning is to connecting all the wine producers in the Asian region, and creating an environment that mainly focus on, of course, on wine, and of course, like a side products you mentioned, like oil, olive oil production, and all those different cultural food products.
In that context, it's quite interesting, because you mentioned it a little. It started as a personal ambition, right? You know, because I know that you have this land inherited, some land, let's say, but then with your father you created this quite vast amount of vineyards by adding up some additional plots to that. So it is a mission at the end to create that kind of stuff. But maybe because of the local conditions, you know, that ambitions had to be supported by some other inventive tactics, and to create that wine culture, and also to find out some other ways of the project, basically, whatever you invest in, because it is not only an investment that you made to the era that you built this winery, but at the same time it is an investment that you had done to yourself in person. All your education, all your educational background, all your ambitions, all your efforts that you put on to create a brand, basically. It is maybe you know, much more important. You know, it is a much more important investment, maybe if we compare the investment that you had done to the environment in materials, you know, like construction, like, I don't know, any other stuff, any other technical stuff. You also invest a lot of personal energy and also a lot of professional intellectual knowledge into this brand creation, because you are not only producing wines, but at the end those wines create your brand, and you also go to other countries to make the promotion of it, and at the same time you try to make promotions in local scale. And you slightly mentioned the difficulties that you faced in local scale because of the culture, because of the regulations of the state, etc. But can you tell a little bit more about this international difficulties or opportunities related to that very product that you create, which has this local qualities and properties? Because it is at the end not an industrial product, but it is a kind of boutique product, but also it has its unique local identity, but you make the promotion of it international scale. And I know that there are some barriers if you want to take that product in specific kind of markets. So can you tell us about it a little? Because it's also, related to food innovation, because, you create the product, you create the product related to food, but then you have to, create brands out of it. You have to make the promotion of it. You have to create this delivery chains and channels for it. So it is also related to that from my point of view.
Yeah. First, it's a big topic, so
I know.
It can take hours from a talk about it, but I will first start the challenge, difficulties, and opportunities from the.
I asked this question. I asked this question because right now I'm in France. I'm in Paris, right? And, yeah. So this is the land of wines and the wine culture. They call it, at least. So I'm just curious, what do you think about that in international scale?
For difficulties and opportunities, first, I think I need to start from the local perspective, of course. What are the difficulties right now? That mainly, of course, we already know that because of the current government's vision about it. Right now, Turkey is ruled by a very conservative government, so their approach about alcohol, we already know it, and they don't differentiate alcohol like, oh, this is wine, or this is beer, or this is spirit, and they don't want to, or they don't, I don't know, but that kind of conservative approach is already making everything difficult. Like you said, you ask about the promotion ways that we use in Turkey. We can't promote wine in Turkey right now because all banned. The advertisement and the promotion of alcohol in any terms is banned in Turkey. Like we can't have a website that shows our the picture of our wine bottles, or we can't talk about it. So it's a very big challenge, especially for Nif, for us, because we were planning to promote our wines like 3 years ago. Then all the Gezi is all started, and then they banned all the promotion and the advertisement of the alcohol. So the challenge is started from that day, and since then it's still going through. So
maybe Gaye, it can be also quite interesting to state that even though because when you put it in that way, people say that this is something quite reasonable, because it is a general ban on promotion of alcoholic beverages, but at the same time the promotion of any kind of artificial sugar included, quite cancerogen soft beverages is highly open. And maybe I know how you process the wine. You don't even use machines to pump the grapes from one container to the other container. And if I think about it in that way, any kind of soft beverages which is allowed to make any kind of public promotion looks like extremely dangerous if I compare with the product that you produce. So if we think about that, it is much more strange for me. Today I read a news. Maybe it was like, I didn't check it, but I will check it, and if it's not true, I will correct it for sure. But one of the world's biggest soft beverage producer had this person had a special permit from the Turkish state to use a water resource by not paying any amount of money to the state, so to people. But the state is increasing the price of the water that the farmers uses, maybe every year or every 2 years, etc., and they charge it. And I remember that one of the small agriculture town, the mayor of one of the small agriculture town in Western Turkey, he provided water, the local source of the water, to this farmers for free, and he had been jailed because of that act. And banning some kind of alcoholic beverage, banning the promotion of some kind of alcoholic beverage is not that radical. But if we think everything in this concept, in this frame of strange events, it became much more strange from my point of view, and much more questionable at the end.
Yeah, but I need to point out about something like the advertisement of a product and the promotion of a product is kind of a different things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm okay with the banning of advertisement of any alcohol, or I'm not gonna classify it as alcohol for any kind of product that's the higher consumption that will harm many people. Then I'm okay about the banning that advertisement of that product to not let people to consume more. But the promotion of a product is to letting the consumer to know better about how they produce that product and what's the aim of the product and the story behind that product. So what they're banning right now is to inform the consumer and me letting and telling my story to other people. So it's a different story. So right now I can't in any special event that specializes in wine or food, I can't go there. I can't talk about my wine. I can't let people taste my wine because it's classified as alcohol, and it's one of the things that banned Turkey. But like you mentioned, this rule applies to many things. If you consume something too much, even if some portions, if it's healthy, if you consume too much, it's becoming unhealthy. Like very high sugar leveled drinks, like even some orange juice, or people think that it's healthy. One glass of it contains a crazy amount of sugar, so it's not healthy. And when you compare with a glass of wine, the health level of wine is better than those products that people think that it's very healthy, and they even force their kids to drink it. And so I think it's not fair, but there's not much we can do about it, because you can make people to see something if they want to see. If they don't want to see, it's another story. But I don't want to get in these issues too much in this video, because it's not about the politics. But when I came to your question in the global arena about the promotion of the wine, as I talk as a Turkish wine, both it has some disadvantages and advantages. It has advantages because people, the consumption route of the people, because they always try to experience something new, And Turkey as a wine producing country is, for most of the people, something new. Even it's like the beginning of the wine production and grape production, is still something very new for people to see Turkey as a wine producer country. So it's a big advantage to attract people with this, but also it's a disadvantage because, like I said, the wine is special product, and everyone is related to with the culture and the history and where that country belongs to now, and it's like it's a whole package. So unfortunately, Turkey now seems as a little bit of a conservative country, and there's not much of freedom, and so in people's mind they can't put wine in where they put Turkey now. So it's not fair. It's not fair, but still I can understand them. So it makes everything harder to convince people about the quality and how you produce here. Like, you already seen Nif Vineyards and the winery and how we produce wine. Right now, I can easily and say that the production style that we apply to our wines now is very high standards, that even high that you can find in many New World wine producer countries, maybe in Napa, that's where I worked. So. But people don't know it because they don't have a chance to come to see Turkey or your area or to see your winery. How they classify your wine production or wine just by those, images that they have about your people and about your country. So when you're in a big international fair as French producers and Turkish producers, obviously people came to your counter with different ideas and thoughts than the French counter. So it's a disadvantage, of course. But I think we can get over it by talking to more people and trying to represent our wines and to get social with our wines internationally. That's the only thing we can do right now, to let more people know about Turkey, Turkish story, and the regions and the origins of Turkish winemaking, and the very good examples of Turkish wines. Like, this is also another aim of the wine route, because wine route concept is an international concept, and many of the wine consumers also very they're familiar with the wine route concept. So if we can make different choices in wine routes in Turkey, maybe we can attract more people internationally to come here and to convince them about to try different Turkish wines and make them see how the quality is high in Turkish wines, and make them more people know about it.
It is important, as you said, but it's quite difficult, as you said again, to get out of that national identity, the perception of the national identity or the identity of the country that you come from. But it's quite strange at the same time, because most of the time we say that this is a extremely globalized world right now. The local identities are much more important than the identity of the countries, etc., etc. But when it comes to this bigger scale intercontinental promotion of things, everything just crash to that identity of that nation or the country itself. Of course, it is much more related to country-sized, funding and support, because when the promotion became that big in scale, then some state funding is also necessary. So the whole language changes. Even though all these people who are focused in wine production, they know that this is something quite related to the local, related to the soil, related to the people who are taking care of the wines or taking care of the process. When it comes to the representation of an identity in international scale, then that kind of country identities in a way invade the identity of the product and the producers of it. But thank you for your contribution to our series, because these are the issues that I really wanted to stress on, because you are actually producing that product in that scale, in that area, with your knowledge of now, and also with your knowledge of the past, and you will dreaming on the future. So invention and creation, it is totally necessary to continue. Otherwise, it is impossible to continue to dream. But that's why it is also important to share this knowledge and difficulties, and also the opportunities related to this beautiful wine culture. Thank you for being part of our video interviews, Gaye.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.